Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our latest webinar, How to Avoid Entrepreneurial Burnout with Mandi Lunan. I'm Karen Cornelson, and I'm the Manager of Marketing, Communications, and Events at KAST, the Kootenai Association for Science and Technology, and I also manage the Nelson Innovation Center. So before we start, I just want to give you a quick update on what KAST is up to. We have a lot of programs happening right now that could help you as a business owner. So I won't take up too much of your time because I know we all want to hear from Mandi. But yeah, for any of you who are running a business in the Kootenays and need some help, entering the digital economy or expanding, getting online, we have the Digital Economy Rapid Response and Resiliency Program, or we call it DER3 for short because it's a mouthful. So basically, this amazing no cost, no obligation program is open to any Kootenai business in any sector to help you get online. So yeah, you can check it out at kast.com/DER3. I'll also put some of these links in the chat. We also have applications. They are open now for the Kootenai Pitch Competition event number 3, and they're due March 1st of 2021. Our competition is made up of 3 events, and in each event, 3 Kootenai entrepreneurs go head to head, pitching their business idea to a panel of local judges. It's been pretty awesome. We've had 2 events so far with hundreds of people tuning in from across the province to cheer on our local entrepreneurs. So if you have an idea of your own, please apply by March 1st. Again, I'll put the link in the chat. And lastly, if we have any tech entrepreneurs or companies here today, we do have the Tech Resiliency Program, which is a free program to help you if you've been impacted by COVID-19. So if you need any more info on any of these programs, you can email me, karen@kast.com. And yeah, without further ado, I'm really pleased to introduce you to Mandi Lunan. Mandi is a former bakeshop owner turned culinary business advisor with over 18 years of experience. Her areas of expertise are self-care for entrepreneurs, culinary social media, storytelling, PR, and third-party distribution for packaged foods. Mandi is new to the West Kootenay. Welcome, Mandi, from Ottawa, and she's thrilled with the vibrant food scene she's found here. And today she's going to go into all things entrepreneurial burnout and give you some amazing tips and tricks on how to battle it. So over to you, Mandi.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, everyone. It's wonderful to see everyone here today. It's a beautiful day out in the Kootenays, so definitely lifting up my spirits, especially after our cold snap. So I want to begin by saying that nobody really comes into business thinking that they're going to not make it or have to close their business, but it's a very real gamble that we all make when we do come, and there's a real stigma attached to it. As entrepreneurs, we have it pounded into our heads constantly that failure just isn't an option, and that we could all have saved our businesses if we'd actually wanted to or worked a little harder. I've actually had a few people say that to my face over the years. I closed my bake shop 5 years ago, and I've actually had a few people say that if I really wanted to, I could have saved it. So I lost my shop because I didn't take care of myself. I started it when I was 22, and I ran it for 13 years. And when we hear the word burnout, we kind of picture something really dramatic and a really big finality, but it's a lot more subtle than that. Apologies, starting up my screen here. So what is a burnout? My burnout didn't really happen overnight. It was more of a death by 1,000 cuts kind of situation. Like most entrepreneurs, I didn't really notice it because I was so wrapped up in just trying to handle the day-to-day of my business. So I'd compartmentalize it. I'd put it away to deal with later almost, just while I was busy trying to keep things going. The pictures that you're looking at right here were actually taken about 6 weeks before I realized I had to close my business. And that doesn't really look like a girl who's about to crash and burn now, does it? That's also one of the big dangers of social media, and as well as the projection of success constantly and the pressure to constantly look successful in the business and entrepreneurial community as a whole. Social media makes that very easy. So we have no idea what's actually going on beneath the surface, if you will, like the tip of the iceberg. And I find too that when a lot of entrepreneurs are approaching a burnout, it doesn't really play out that way as something big and dramatic. It's usually a bunch of little tiny things. I ignored all of my warning signs and I sailed headfirst right into my burnout. The upside to all of this is that I can now help my clients. I can help them all avoid my fate because I recognize all the signals and the signs. But I'd like to talk quickly too about the toxicity of what I like to call hustle culture, something that's very, very prevalent in the entrepreneurial community. And we see it in a lot of different places. And if you're wondering what I mean when I say hustle culture, it usually manifests itself as people bragging about working a 70-hour week, sacrificing time with their family, working a late night, working all weekend long and missing out on things. And they almost wear this as a badge of honor to prove to themselves in the community how committed they really, really are to things and how far they're willing to go to get them. Kind of here today, and when I talk to my clients, I work very hard at dismantling these notions. The failure is an option quotes serve absolutely nobody except for the stock art that they're usually printed on and pumped through social media on, to be honest with you. They just make us all feel guilty for taking downtime. The simple fact is that you're really the beating heart of your business. And if you're not taking care of yourself and if you're not rested, you probably aren't going to make the best decisions and the best choices to be able to run your business effectively. You probably got into business for the same reason a lot of people do. And I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. Most people get into business so that way they have more control over their destiny. So they have more free time, so they can live the life the way they want, raise their families, travel, have downtime. But I find a lot of folks lose sight of this and just get all wrapped up in working all the time. You should always work really hard to get your business to work for you, so that way you aren't constantly working for it. This can mean setting office hours so you can meet your child at the bus every day, maybe starting your day a little bit earlier, that kind of thing. Make sure you're really setting yourself up for that success. So self-care and stepping away for us is a little bit different than people who have an employer because we don't have a paid leave and we don't have an HR department. So what I usually recommend is folks explore tiny little day-to-day things that they can do to make it easier on themselves. I'd like to start first with the warning signs of what a burnout looks like. The first one is an interrupted sleep cycle. So this can be having little nightmares in the night about work, but this is constant. I know we all, as entrepreneurs, have nightmares here and there. I used to have nightmares about forgetting wedding cakes, things like that. But I'm talking like a real interrupted sleep cycle. So you can't get to sleep, or you're falling asleep at dinner, you're waking up in the middle of the night for several hours, that kind of thing. That's an interrupted sleep cycle. I'm going to get a little bit real here as well. When I was about 2 months away from losing my bake shop, my panic attacks started happening in my sleep as well. So I would sit up and scream, much to the delight of my partner. It was really frightening for both of us. Now I realize that that was a very severe interrupted sleep cycle. So watch for those changes. If you find that you're easily irritated, this can be people providing you with feedback and you getting more upset about it and not being so receptive to it. If you're snapping at your staff or your allies, the people who help you. I was snapping at my staff pretty much on the regular, my suppliers, everybody, getting very overwhelmed. If you find you're having a lack of concentration and focus, if you can't complete your tasks every day, if everything feels too big, or if it becomes what I like to call the impossible task, things that we just constantly procrastinate and put off, even though they would have only taken 5 or 10 minutes, because just the idea of it seems too big for us to handle. If you're resentful of your job, now we all have our moments, right? We all have our moments where it's like, man, why did I do this? But this is a feeling that doesn't go away. It's kind of like when you're experiencing a severe depressive episode and they say, if you've had this feeling for more than 90 days, it's something that's serious. It's kind of like that. If you're really just getting up in the morning and really just dreading what you're doing for a living, it's time to kind of step back, re-examine, see if you can change your business model. Think about if it's time to sell your brand or your business, or if you should just take a graceful exit. If you find you're becoming numb to your achievements and your positive things, if you've won awards or reached your goals and all you can think about are the next goals and you don't really feel anything about that, that's a big sign. Self-medicating with booze, food, and even over-exercising I've seen sometimes, just to kind of distract yourself from the reality and numb the pain. And burnout can actually manifest physically as well. Usually, for me, it manifested as digestive issues, but for a lot of folks, it's aches, pains, headaches, all kinds of stuff. So watch for those little things if you're noticing those come around. And I'd like as well to point out that if you take nothing else at all from this today, please take this. That self-care isn't a luxury item for business people. It's an integral part of your well-executed business strategy. This is just as important as any other building block in your business plan. If you're not allocating downtime for yourself and good self-care strategies, you're not going to be able to run your business. So if you don't care about anything else I have to say today, that's okay. I just really want you to take this part with you. So I'm going to jump right into our self-care tips. My first one is one I love to challenge my new clients with. A few have been a little traumatized by it, but they all agree that it's very, very much worthwhile. And that is turning your social media push notifications to off. This is such a distractor and such a time sucker. So this means Facebook, this means Twitter, this means Instagram, this means TikTok. Go into your settings and turn all of the push notifications to off. What you can do is you can allocate 3 or 4 times a day when you go and you check your professional social media feeds to see what's going on. So that way you don't get, as an entrepreneur I like to work with calls it, sucked in to the news feed where the 5-minute check turns into scrolling. And I know right now too, it's especially easy to scroll with all that's going on in the world. But really try to stay allocated times to peek at social media. And see if this doesn't make you more productive. Our next self-care tip is a strategic do not disturb. Every phone has a magical setting called do not disturb. And what this does is it stops phone calls from coming in. Your phone will not ring. I personally am a big fan from the 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. do not disturb. So that way I'm not on my phone and distracted with work. But this is also great if you're in the middle of writing giant proposals, if you have a strict deadline, or if you have anything else going on. And some of my clients who have children or elderly folks that they're taking care of have come to me and been like, well, I don't have that option. The do not disturb function actually has a function on it where your favorite phone numbers can get through to you. So if there is somebody that's depending on you, those folks can still get through. So that way you can focus and you can get your work done while not being distracted. My next tip is the email bounce back. I also have this set up on my social media feeds. So I found that in the past 10 years, especially since folks have become so inclined to use social media and to use email so effectively, there's almost a strong reaction whenever we don't have immediate gratification or an immediate reply to anything. This can be easily resolved by having a bounce back. So it pacifies the sender and you can feel better about just not peeking at the inbox for a while you focus on your own work. So when I have a bounce back, for example, the one on my Facebook just says, I'm a one-girl show. I don't have a lot of time to look at this inbox. Please send me an email for a more timely reply. The one in your email inbox can say, these are our office hours. I check my email at 9, 12, 3, and 5, for example. So that way the person will get the bounce back and they'll know that they will get replied to in your next time that it's time for you to check your emails again. So it's a really good way to kind of make everybody feel a little calmer and a little bit happier, puts your mind at ease, and it can also get you on your own great schedule because email is also very easy to get sucked into and waste time with. So having a few times a day where you check your email and it's on your bounce back, it's great. My next tip is personal and business boundaries. Your personal and private time is yours, even as a business owner. So don't ever hesitate to step up and claim it for yourself. This means, if you're out in public and you see a client, you're welcome to be polite with them, but you're also welcome to say, it was great to see you. Let's have a chat tomorrow, since you're obviously interested in talking about this topic right now, but I'm enjoying dinner with my spouse. This can also look like, and something I've done for years, is I found with the advent of social media, and especially since I was a young person with a bakery, a lot of my clients really wanted to add me. And it made me feel really nervous because I would share lots of my personal views and beliefs on there. And I wasn't sure if that would be palatable to everybody. And I just didn't feel like spending the emotional energy trying to keep everybody happy. So I usually recommend that my clients create what I call a dummy account. So have an account for yourself, post all your nice professional things, post all your upcoming events and all that good stuff. And then have another channel with a fake name on it where you post the pictures of the kids and the memes and the hilarious TikToks and all that good stuff, where people you know in real life are the only people who are allowed to follow that account. This is a really, really good way of separating business and work and keeping your privacy to yourself. You can really run yourself into the ground by trying to be everything to everyone on social media. So I usually recommend setting up these boundaries. If you can, and I know it's not easy for everyone, but again, we're going to try and make our business work for us. So getting your body onto a schedule and getting your mind into a schedule is regular days off. 2 days if possible, concurrently, 1 if not. And when I say day off, I mean a day off. I mean, we're not going to run errands for the business. We're not doing research. We're not checking out a network event. I mean, a day off. Go into the woods, go for a walk, go visit with friends, leave your phone at home if you can. Really just something that's purely just for yourself, for your own enjoyment. Maybe you have a hobby. I took up gardening in the past year. I drove across Canada with all these guys in a laundry basket. So that's what I do now on my days off is I work on my plants and I work on my gardening and I try to read paper books. So find some nice hobbies that don't involve being online all day and being involved in your business all day and apply those to your proper days off. And again, running a business errand on your day off does not make it a day off because you're at work right here. Now, this is always my most controversial self-care tip, but get off the phone. And when I mean get off the phone, I mean get off the phone. When you are on your phone, be it looking at social media, having a telephone call, anything like that, you're still at work. I usually recommend that my clients try to turn off their phones if possible. Again, if you're family people, that's okay too. But if you turn off your phone and shove it in a drawer over supper time, so that way you're really focused and engaged with your family members. You're not being distracted and pulled away from that time. Start small. Again, like the push notifications, some of my clients have found it a little bit traumatizing. So you can start with 30 minutes or maybe just over the supper time hour. But this is a really, really good way to, again, get your brain out of that workspace and focusing on yourself. It's a small thing that you can do every day. And it's been very, very effective. My final self-care tip is delegation nation. You hired your staff probably because you trust them, right? So trust them. Give them the tasks to complete for you. See if there's people that you can help. See if there's scheduling software. Hire a virtual assistant if you need. This is like one of the best things that you can do as well. It's really, really helpful. Just don't be afraid to delegate some work. You don't have to do everything yourself. A lot of entrepreneurs I know will fall into this pattern of feeling like nobody can do it like they can do it and that it's not going to be the same. Then why did you hire anybody? I used to hire staff based purely on areas that I wasn't strong with. So I hired a very talented cake decorator because I wasn't good at decorating cakes. I hired somebody who was really, really into ordering and inventory and kind of doing all the numbers for figuring out products and stuff, because that also wasn't my strong point. So consider hiring people that make up for the areas you find tricky. And then you'll feel more comfortable delegating to them because they are yours. If you've trained them and they're your staff, you should be able to trust them and take a step away. And I find these presentations really get up a lot of conversations. So I'm going to wrap it up and let's have a conversation if you'd like. We can do Q&As. We can do anything else. Oh, here's my quick shameless promotion if you'd like to ever follow me online. But I'd like us to have a conversation. If you want to pop your question into the Q&A or anything like that, you will be anonymous. I won't say your name out loud, but please let's have a chat. Let's have some questions and answers. Don't be shy. It's completely anonymous. I find that there's a lot of stigma around admitting struggling and weakness in our industry. And that's why I'm going to keep your name to myself if you do want to post things in there, because it is important that we all, oh, perfect. I recovered from my burnout. I think it was Elizabeth Taylor who said one foot in front of the other. So I've written an extensive blog series too, because I couldn't find any resources for myself when I closed about grieving a business, because I found it was almost like I'd lost a person. I'd been through a funeral, and it was hard. And outside of finding one article about some bros out in Silicon Valley who made a bad investment, I couldn't find anything about the emotional component. So I've actually written a few blog posts about what I went through. It wasn't pretty. At first, as I say, there was no eat, pray, love. It was more like cry, panic, binge, drink, and eat. It took me a few months to kind of find my feet again. So when I closed my shop, my parents lived in a rural community. I left Ottawa for a few months. I deleted all of my social media. My partner came with me, and I just kind of sat in the quiet, sat around my family. My grandma and I had lots of big, long talks. She was actually really, really mad that I put so much importance on only the business being so important, when the family had always thought I was important, and I always mattered to them, and I always would. So that was very therapeutic. After that, I kept myself off of social media for about a year and a half. I did a lot of journaling, but I also had some down moments too. You know, I had to come back to the city, and I did, you know, a lot of soul searching while I figured out what I was going to do. I worked for a while in Ontario. I worked for our liquor stores for 2 years because they're unionized retail positions, and that was pretty therapeutic. When you're dealing with some of the rough and tumble kind of folks that are around there, when you're really down and out, and you have to really have your backup, it was a very, very therapeutic situation. And then I started having entrepreneurs call me and asking me questions. What happened when I fought with the city about that? What happened when I competed on the Food Network, and how did that happen? How did I get into this grocery store chain? And that's when I realized that all of the experience and all the things I'd been to had a value to it, and that I could help people if I could just pull myself out of this pity party. And I did. Thank you very much. That was a really good question. Launching the e-commerce site. So again, the delegation would be based the most, in my opinion, on, you know, the delegation would be based on, again, divided up by your strengths and by your weaknesses. Divided up by, you know, what's the area that you know you can handle alone, that you're the most strong in, and what's the area that you're feeling the most nervous about. You don't have to teach yourself everything, and you don't have to be everything to everyone. So kind of break it up in the areas that you feel the strongest with. You take those, and then you delegate the ones that are making you not feel so awesome. Yes, I found a lot of clients do push my boundaries. Boundaries and my work hours. That does happen. So as in regards to a pushy client who doesn't respect your boundaries or your work hours, don't answer. You can almost get them, you know, into the training. So if you go to my website right now, it actually says, please respect my office hours and my downtime. Here are my office hours. Here is my downtime. So this includes not really engaging with it. So don't answer. If somebody sends you an email, for example, after your business hours, don't answer it. It's okay. It's still going to be there tomorrow. This is your time. Claim it. Claim your time. This is your private time. So kind of by not engaging with it and explaining to them right out of the gate that this is your private time, you know, that can really help you going forward. Okay, so with the clients and saying, how are you, and getting a lot of offloading from that, sometimes I'll find that if my clients start going, I will say, would you like some advice today, or would you just like to vent? Because that's, like it's something I started doing with my friends a few years ago too. When they would call me, I'd say, oh my gosh, like this is so horrible. I can't believe this is happening to you. Do you want advice today, or do you just want to vent? Because I'm here for you, and I'm here for either, and you can kind of let them go from there. But, you have to be careful as well with your professional boundaries. So I find I just have one of those faces. People really trust me, and people really lean into me. And it's something I'm honored that I have that face. But I also sometimes have to cut it short, especially if somebody's paying me for their session and what they're going off about is not relevant to the paid time with me, because I want to make sure that they get the most from their sessions too. So it's a balance of empathy as well as listening. And it can really get you going. But that was a really good question, because I find that does happen a lot. I like, how can I help? That was pretty good. And also, instead of saying, how can I help, or how are you, you can say something like, what would you like to discuss today? What would you like to get through today? What's your goals for today? That kind of thing too is a good way to feel it out. Are there any other questions? Question, what if you have no one to delegate to? That's also a really good question. You should try to find, again, you have to kind of sit down with yourself and figure out what you can do and what you can't do, because it's a very rare person who can do everything themselves. So make a list of what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and the areas that you need help in. There's a lot of tutorials, webinars. It's that's the one upside to COVID, is there's a how-to for almost everything online these days. But again, you can't teach yourself how to do absolutely everything. So if you have no one to delegate to, you can try to teach yourself via webinars. You can lean on other people in your community and business owners who you trust and love. You should always have a really solid group of business owners who you trust and love. So try to lean on them as well too, and see if they can help you out, even if it's just by giving you advice, suggestions, tools, that kind of thing. Okay, that's a really great question. How do you deal with overwhelm when you feel like everything is urgent and is a priority? I'm finding I'm always in an urgent and a rushed state of mind. So how do we, when I was a kid, my mom would always say, how do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So what I do is I'll sit down. I do a lot of journaling. I actually have a journal that's just for my business. I found it really beneficial to me and really, really helpful. So I will actually write out business dreams, goals in the future, that kind of thing. But whenever I'm dealing with the overwhelm, like you just described, what I'll kind of do is I'll write down the client. When is the project due? When does this have to happen by? And by that way, I can kind of clearly see it written on the paper for me. Who has the priority there? Who needs this the most? Is somebody having a garbage fire on social media? Because I've helped people clean up that before. That usually becomes an urgent priority. Who has a deadline for a grant coming up? What are my personal deadlines as well too, for the webinars I have coming up, or the content calendars that I have to fill in? I find that really writing it out, and it sounds so old-timey and very cliched, but it works really, really well. I think because I did it so much when I was exploring my own mental recovery and my own burnout recovery, and I did so much journaling and so much writing, that creating a journal for my business is one of my most favorite things that I ever actually did. What do you suggest if you find yourself needing more time off emotionally or mentally than you can financially afford? That's a good one. I was very privileged and very, very fortunate to have a partner who was employed full-time, who could help me out financially while I took my time away. And I'm aware that not everybody has that. So if you do find that you need more time off, start taking a look at your own personal budget for the business. Is there anywhere that we could make a few cuts to cut down your overhead cost? So for example, right now, I know a few people have moved out of big corporate offices into the home because it's COVID, and that's something that could easily be taken away, is that sky high rent and that kind of thing. But again, not everybody has that option. Explore some things that, you know, you could maybe live without. Or, you know, I know one entrepreneur who just, she really needed some time away from her job. She couldn't handle it anymore. So she actually dumbed down her hours to her own business to part-time and went and got a little part-time job for herself, and was very happy with that option as well too, because it took her away from her business, but she felt a little bit better about it because she was just doing a little retail job where she didn't have to bring it home with her. And that's the difference. The entrepreneurs, like, we all bring our stuff home with us. And I hope I answered that well enough, but I do understand that definitely not everybody can afford to do a big, huge step away. It's not always easy. So I recommend trying to make some cuts, or maybe considering things you could do to generate income in other ways. Oh my goodness, I'm going to say it wrong. I'm going to say it wrong. It was just shown to me 3 weeks ago and I'm obsessed with it already. I think it's called Paleon or Patron. Essentially, it's passive income. So the best way I can explain it is, I'm assuming everybody here knows what OnlyFans is. It's OnlyFans, but it's for business. So essentially, you create a page and people pay to have exclusive access to things on your page. So I have a friend who's a life coach, and she has her own page up there, and people subscribe for $2 a month. And she posts exclusive tips, tricks, workouts, all that kind of stuff. So that's a really good way to generate what I like to call a passive income, because even if you're just charging $2 to $5 a month, if you get 100 people on that, that's a pretty substantial little chunk of money there. Okay, question. This is a good one too. It's especially hard to separate work from personal because of working from home. How do you separate from work at home? So for me, this is the spare room at my place, and it's also my office. I only work in this room. So when I enter this room, I'm in a work mindset. I don't work anywhere else. I have some plans in the summer to sit outside on my patio and do some work, but that's it. The computer does not leave this room. Don't ever bring work into bed with you, because then you'll start affiliating your bedroom with work. And when you're trying to sleep, you're going to just think about work, and you're going to think about what has to be done because you've created that connection almost. So I find keeping my home office as such. When the door's closed, my partner knows that he is not to come in. When the door's open and I'm typing, he knows that he's welcome to come in and ask me something if he needs to, but he's a pretty quiet, independent fella, so he doesn't bug me too much. But when the door's closed, that means it's Mandi time. I also have earbuds. I'll listen to something relaxing while I work, so that way I'm not distracted by the noises outside and that kind of stuff too. I also try not to I just try not to move around the house too much. You'll start to make associations and things like that. I find too that working from home, I get a lot more distracted because there's a lot, there can be a lot going on sometimes. So I use what they call the Pomodoro method. So you work for 25 minutes and then you do something else for 5. Mine is usually getting up to get a tea, a tiny snack, or maybe do some core exercises or a little bit of stretching, that kind of thing. And then after about a 4-hour cycle of that, you get up and you take a full break. And that helps me stay focused and stay calm. When I break for lunch, I don't ever eat lunch at my desk. I walk into my kitchen, as my partner jokingly calls our break room, and I eat my lunch there. So that way I can enjoy and step away from the computer, and that's my time. I hope that answers your question. I know it's been really, really tricky for a lot of people working from home, and especially too back east where a bunch of our young folks are still out of school. So they're all still at home trying to learn as well too. I know it's been very, very challenging for a lot of people. Were there any other questions today? Well, if anybody has any questions or anything that they weren't comfortable asking here, then please feel free to always, oh, do I have somebody? What do I do for summer hours? That's a really good question too. So the way it stands right now, again, I love having everything on my, I love having everything on my website. I'm a huge fan of FAQs and policies all being up there on my website, as well as I do 15-minute courtesy calls, just because it's such a good way for you to find the right match for you. So I'm not wasting time going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with somebody in an email. And then they're like, oh, you only work Monday to Thursday. Well, that's no good. No, it was right there on my website the whole time. So folks can kind of get into that and get comfortable with that. And we can see if we're a good match for each other. For summer hours, I find people are usually very happy and very excited for you when you do want to take a break out. So, you know, like when I had the shop, I used to close for 2 weeks every year in January because it just empties, as well as I'd close again in August for 2 weeks because Ottawa has so many civil servants in it pre-COVID that people used to just take off for an entire month in the summertime. That's what happens with the paid vacations and the nice incomes and all that good stuff. So the city would just kind of empty out. So I would close during those times because it would actually cost me more to stay open. And people would usually be really, really understanding. And, you know, there's always what I like to call the hard to get factor. So, you know, some people like knowing that they can't access you all the time, makes you a little more exciting. Well, thank you so much for coming today. I hope you all found this interesting and helpful. And please feel free to send me an email if you like. I'm putting it in the chat as we speak.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Mandi. I feel like I learned a lot. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I feel like a lot of your tips I will definitely try to put into action. And I just want to thank everyone for all your really great questions and for taking the time to be here today. And yeah, Mandi has put her email in the chat, reach out anytime. I will send the recording out today and it will be available on our YouTube channel. So thanks again, everyone. Thank you, Mandi, and I hope you all have a great day.